Oh, here's your bill.
Whenever you're ready, Shirley, just let us know.
Okay, give me 1 second.
Go ahead, take your time. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Utility Special District meeting. The date is April 17th, and the time is 5:34 p.m. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Chairperson Douglas Lawson.
Here.
Vice Chair Shirley Lanier.
Here.
Board Member Chadwick McCoy. Board Member Kashamba Miller Anderson.
Here.
Board Member Glenn Spiritus.
Here.
Ex officio Board Member Mayor Ronnie Felder. City Manager Jonathan Evans.
Present.
Executive Director Michael Lowe.
Here.
Acting District Clerk Deborah Hall McCullough is present. District Attorney Don Nguyen.
Here.
District Finance Director Randy Sherman. Mr. Chair, you have a quorum. You may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'm checking the audience if our student is here. Not yet. They'll be here for the next meeting, so we will have a student actually speaking, giving our Pledge of Allegiance. But for tonight, we're going to have a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Board Member Miller Anderson.
For all.
Mr. Chair, please, Chair Lawson and board members, let the record reflect that Board Member McCoy sent notification of his absence from tonight's board meeting.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Do we have any additions, deletions, or substitutions?
None from staff, Mr. Chair.
I do believe that I have a request for consents. Board members, will we consider adding item 7A, Resolution 009-24 UD to consent?
So move.
Anything else? Any additional deletions, substitutions? Roll call, Madam Clerk. Motion to adopt agenda, I'm sorry. It's been moved by Dr. Spiritus.
Yes, we need a second.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion been made and properly seconded. Madam Clerk?
Board Member Spiritus,
Yes.
Board Member Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lanier,
Yes.
Chair Lawson,
Yes.
unanimous vote.
Consent agenda. Consent agenda is routine business in nature. The consent is approved by a single majority vote, and items may be removed for open discussion by any board member. Does anyone want to pull an item from consent?
We just did consent. Chair,
Madam Clerk, I'm sorry, Vice Pro Temp?
we, voted just with the agenda or just
Just the agenda. Now,
Okay.
we're moving to consent. We just approved the agenda.
Okay.
And so I'm just asking if anyone wants to pull an item, and that is with moving item 7A to consent. 7A. So we moved 7A, which was Resolution 00924 to consent. Motion to adopt consent?
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and properly seconded. Do we have any public comments, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Chair, we do not have any comments on the consent agenda.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Roll call, please.
You're welcome. Board Member Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Spiritus,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lanier,
Yes.
Chairperson Lawson,
Yes,
unanimous vote.
thank you. Madam Clerk? 4A.
We are now at awards and presentations. Item 4A, selection of a chairperson and vice chairperson for the Utility Special District Board of Directors in accordance with Section 3.03 of the City of Riviera Beach Utility Special Districts Charter.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Are we opening for nominations?
I nominate Doug Lawson.
Any additional nominations? Madam Clerk, do we need a vote?
We would not need a vote if there is only one nominee for the position.
So if you can close nominations?
Yes, nominations are now closed.
And to confirm the chair, I do believe that we actually do need to take roll call, Madam Clerk.
Okay, we will call the roll call. Board Member Miller Anderson,
No.
Board Member Spiritus,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lanier,
Oh.
Chair Lawson.
Yes.
Okay, that is a split vote, so that fails.
Thank you. Do we want to reopen nominations?
I nominate Travis McCoy.
Are there any other nominations? Okay, we will now vote on Charlotte McCoy as chairperson of the Utility Special District. Board Member Spiritus,
Yes.
Board Member Miller Anderson,
No.
Vice Chair Lanier,
Oh.
Chairperson Lawson,
No.
and that item fails with Board Member Miller Anderson, Vice Chair Lanier, and Chair Lawson voting nay.
Madam Clerk,
Yes, sir.
the appointment and selection, charter requires that we have to select a chair every year.
Yes, that is correct.
Board, until we have the makeup of the entire board, do we want to table this item until the next meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and properly seconded. Madam Clerk?
Board Member Miller Anderson, Board Member Spiritus, Vice Chair Lanier,
No.
Chair Lawson,
Yes.
and that passes with Vice Chair Lanier dissenting.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
You're welcome.
8A?
Discussion and deliberation, item 8A, progress update, water treatment plant replacement project. Mr. Chair, we do have public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of the public comment cards on this item is now closed.
Thank you. Mr. Evans?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, if I can have the director of the special utility district, Mr. Michael Lowe, to make this presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Evans. Michael Lowe, Executive Director of the Utility Special District. I have with me today members of the joint venture team who are working on this project. And if you're happy, they would like to make a presentation. They also have one issue that they would like some deliberation by the board on to help them as they progress the project.
Thank you, Director Lowe.
Thank you for giving us the time tonight to present to you and just give a periodic update. I'm Michael Hoisington. I'm the project manager for the overall project. I also have Bette Lenz. She's the architect for the project. Also have Steve here. He's the design manager, and also have Suzanne Meckler. She's the project executive for the project. We'll be presenting to you to just give you a high-level update of where we stand on the project. So, Steve?
Good evening. What I would like to do would be to give you a progress update of where we have gone from the last time we've been here at the board, which was February 21st, if I remember correctly. This happens to be a slide that we used in that presentation. I'm going to review with you the schedule of progressed work, but I thought it would be a good idea to go through the scope of the project just to help remind you of everything that's actually included. On Avenue L, that is an 8-acre tract on the corner of Blue Heron Boulevard and Avenue L, and you can see prominently facing Blue Heron Boulevard, you'd see the operations building. Behind it is the membrane treatment. Behind it would be the pre-treatment facilities, and then in the section behind it would be where you would show or store your chemical storage, as well as have your transfer and your distribution pump stations. And then in the very back of the 8-acre tract is a 5 million gallon ground storage tank. Separate apart from Avenue L, we are performing improvements on the Avenue U site. The Avenue U site is an existing Riviera Beach facility that is at the corner of Martin Luther King Boulevard and Avenue U. And it currently has an existing ground storage tank and an existing pump station. The improvements that we're making is we're going to be adding a proposed maintenance shop that would be used by the USD, and we'll be constructing 2 groundwater supply wells. At the last presentation we provided to you, we were describing the different aquifers that we're going to be adding the groundwater supply wells to. You've got the shallower wells, which are superficial. We're going to be adding 2 superficial wells. This will be the 1 well that we'll be adding, and then we'll be adding a total of 6 Floridan wells. This will be well 5. The Floridan wells are much deeper. Aside from the 2 additional wells, we're going to be reconditioning the site, providing for utility storage, pipe materials, generator storage, all in providing an overall modification to the site, which would require a site development permit. Part of the land development code would be to construct a new proposed dry detention pond that you can see in the upper right-hand corner. So in addition to the Avenue U and Avenue L sites, you have the remaining Floridan supply wells. You can see at the upper right-hand corner, there's a yellow, looks like a little yellow pan. You can see Floridan well number 1, which would be at the closest to Australian Avenue. That would be Avenue L. And then there's another 4 Floridan wells that are dispersed throughout the community. Shown on the figure, you can see in pink, a little over 3 miles of basically raw water pipeline transmission mains that will take the Floridan well water and pump it all the way to the new proposed water treatment plant at Avenue L. So once we make you the best tasting water at Avenue L, you can see at the lower portion of the slide, you can see the proposed water treatment plant. We would need to get the water, the finished water, treated water to the existing Riviera Beach distribution system. So we've got about another mile and a half of proposed finished water main pipeline improvements to tie the new treatment plant into the existing distribution system. So I felt that was necessary to kind of get your arms around what the depth and breadth of our scope is. We discussed last time that we were conducting pilot activities, pilot work. We had been piloting 2 different nanofiltration membrane units. Since that time, those units, we've completed those testing. We've now decommissioned those 2 pilot units. We're continuing with some additional work on the pre-treatment system to refine the design criteria to get you the best pre-treatment system to be able to handle any water that comes our way to the plant to be able to treat it. In February, we discussed the early work package that was discussed in February at the commission meeting. We did receive the purchase order in March. The scope of the work for the early work was a lot of demolition work at Avenue L, removal of a fuel station that's currently at the Avenue L site. We're also going to be performing some additional environmental work at Avenue L. All that is included in that work package. The land lease was discussed today, the land lease agreement for Avenue L, so that is completed. On a permitting front, we have obtained all the site permits, state permits that are needed for the demolition of the fuel station. So we're ready to get going with that work there. Other permits that have been submitted would be all the city permits that are needed for site demolition, as well as the early work package site development permit submittal. We've also submitted the zoning and land use change for Avenue L that was discussed in the February meeting. In May, we are proposing to complete and submit the site development permit submittal for the entirety of the Avenue L work. And then in June, we were proposing to submit the site development permit related to the Avenue U work. So my final slide here is just sort of an update on the design and construction. Okay, from a design perspective, we've submitted the 60% complete of all the supply groundwater wells. We've also achieved the 30% design milestone for all the work on Avenue L. We've also completed a technical memorandum to define what our recommended plan 4 would be for the finished water piping system. So in the design sequence, we have Avenue U, where we are proposing to have a 30% complete submittal ready for June. And we're going to be completing an extensive value engineering effort. That value engineering effort that we're going to be working with the USD and the advisor, Brown and Caldwell, would be to identify cost savings that can be employed on the project where we can incur less money to meet the same design intent. So in essence, that value engineering effort is going to be a deep dive review on what we've currently got proposed. It's always good to complete those types of value engineering exercises early in the design phase so you can implement those without too much hassle as you move forward. And then the outputs from that value engineering exercise will lead to the 60% design submittal for Avenue L, which would pave the way for the GMP. GMP, the guaranteed maximum price, construction status, we have all the production wells that are currently out for bid right now. We're proposing to begin the construction of the 2 superficial wells right away, and then also a test well at Avenue U. And the reason why we're proposing to do that test well at Avenue U for the Floridan would be to determine what the production capacity would be for the Floridan wells. And that may lead to a cost savings by, instead of constructing a total of 6 Floridan wells, we would construct 5. So that will allow us to make that determination. All in though, the work that's being priced right now is all 8 of the supply wells. Yeah, again, 6 right now, 6 Floridan and 2 superficial. We got 3 GMPs after that that are proposed. The GMP related for the entirety of the water treatment plant, and then the maintenance shop at Avenue U. And then we've got a GMP related to, as I showed in my earlier slide, all the raw water transmission main work, and then a GMP that's related to the finished water transmission mains.
Thank you, Steve. So we know it's very important, subcontractor outreach. After the last meeting, we did do a subcontractor outreach. I know Mr. Lawson, you were there, and also Ms. Jacobs. You guys both spoke at that. We appreciate you showing up, and we are going to continue to do that. We did have a handful of local participation at that, and we're going to continue to do those outreaches to be able to drum up local support for this project. Anything else, Suzanne? So the first phase that we're going to start on this project is going to be the demolition of the fueling station that's currently out there at Avenue L. So like Steve said, we have received the state permits. Right now, we have submitted the permits required with the city of Riviera Beach. We are waiting for that review and comment period, and then we will address any comments that come out of that. So right now, we've understand from talking with Jonathan that the fueling operations will cease at the end of this month, and then we will be able to proceed once permits are issued to demobilize and demo out that facility. So we are actually using a local vendor here in town that maintains that facility to perform that work. So once that's demoed, we can also get into the environmental assessment that Steve also talked about, was in our phase 1, or it was in that last approval package that was approved back in February. So we'll do an environmental assessment to make sure there was no leaks or any contamination in the area. So now I want to hand it over to Beth to kind of go over the top 3 renderings that we've got feedback on, and so she can go over a high level and kind of explain the schedule and cost baseline associated with each of those different rendering options. Beth?
Hello, everyone. I'm Beth Lentz, and architect for the project. Closer, thank you. There we go. Yep. So at the last district meeting, we provided several design concepts for you all to review. And from those several concepts, they were narrowed down to 3 favorite preferences. Our JV team did a very high-level cost estimate comparison between the 3 different designs. So this first option 1 is our baseline design. It's your most value for the project. It's very cost-effective. The building is mostly concrete panels with textures, inset reveals, different color patterns. This design has mostly punched window openings with a little bit of tall feature curtain wall at the main lobby entrance, and also a little bit of metal panel accents and sunshades. Option 2 is actually the design concept that we are working toward with the 30% design package that was submitted to the city. And this option is about 40% more expensive than the baseline option. And the reason for that is it has a larger volume and height and a lot of glass tower feature at the main entry, which fronts Blue Heron Boulevard, and it gives a greater presence to the building along Blue Heron Boulevard. This option also has a custom curved metal canopy, additional metal panels that add to the cost for this option. You'll notice that between option 1 and 2, the shape of the building is very similar. So the basic structure of the building is about the same. But then for option 3, it's a very differently shaped building. Option 3 is the most expensive design concept. It's different. It's a different shape toward Blue Heron. It has a large planar curved wall at the front that is clad in a stone veneer, which gives a little bit more texture and refinery at the street. This option also has a little bit more square footage because of the expanded curve feature toward the street. And the second floor has a cantilevered segmented curtain wall feature along the front facade as well. So tonight, we would really like some guidance from you all on which structural massing you prefer for the building. And then we can work with you closely over the next few months to further define and refine a lot of the architectural features on the building itself. So there's several things that don't need a decision today, but the overall structure of the building and the shape of it is really important for us to progress the design forward. Some of the things that we can further define with you are the overall color scheme of the building and the patterns and textures that we have around the whole building. The canopy shape and material that can, change. The specific signage on the building, how much glass, what color is the glass and the frame, other architectural elements like the sunshades, what is the shape, how does, what are the placement, how does that look? And then right now on the design concepts, we have a large panel that has an image relief and logo that may match the logo of the city or the utility special district. That's, up in the air. We can work with you on exactly what is on the building at that time, but that's something that we can further define later. So next step.
So the next steps that we're asking for the board to make decisions. So like Beth asked, we are progressing the design. The basis of our design for the 30% is option 2. But we would ask that if we could receive some input on which direction the JV should proceed with, option 1, option 2, or option 3. So tonight I'm asking for a board vote on that, so we could have direction on which way for our designers to move forward with.
Thank you. Pro Tem Lanier, go ahead.
I have some questions. Well, actually, I have one question. I think that I need to have a meeting one-on-one with you guys because this was an issue that we took up 5 years ago, and it was $100 million. And then after the pandemic, it was $200 million. And now we're up to $300 million. And I need to find out, what are we paying for? We have we're talking about designs and we're talking about structure, and that's all well and good, but we need to agree on a price, because what's happening is that from day to day, week to week, it changes. And we're up to $300 million, and that is ludicrous. People build water plants for $80 million. So we really have to have some conversations about where we are in this process. Number one, it's taken 5 years, and number 2, we're up to that kind of money. And I don't want to go into it here, but until I have a conversation with you guys one-on-one, because I really need to understand what this budget is and where this money is going, because this is a lot of money, and we've gotten double and a half the amount of money that we started with. So this is really taking me by surprise, especially that last meeting when I heard about the $300 million. So we really need to slow this down so I can figure out and be able to articulate where this money is and how it's going to be spent and why we're spending so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Board Member
Mr. Chair?
Mayor?
Yes, just to piggyback on Pro Tem, could you guys tell us why it's taken 5 years? What's been the hold up?
So the JV did, I don't remember the exact timeline of the days we submitted, but we did submit it. We did have a lengthy negotiation on contract terms with the city of Riviera Beach. And then we started in January of 22. So we have been progressing the design. We are, I guess, January 23. Sorry, January 23. So we are approximately 14 months into the design of this water plant.
Could you discuss, because Pro Tem said, like she said, we heard a $200 million price, and now it's up to 300. Where did that cost come from?
It was early conceptual estimate, but currently the JV is working with Riviera and also Brown and Caldwell to evaluate the design costs currently. So we are actively doing a constructability review and also a value engineering process. And we are going to work together as a team and present you that price once we get approval from the city.
One more thing, Mr.
Go ahead,
Chairman.
Mayor.
And I heard Pro Tem say 5 years, but we haven't been working with you guys for 5 years, correct?
No, sir.
Okay, since 2023.
That's when we got the notice to proceed for this project.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have public comments on this item?
We do have 2 public comment cards on this item, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and go with public comment, and then we'll come back to the questions from the board. Thank you, sir.
First, public comment will come from Erica Davis, followed by Julie Botel.
Welcome, Ms. Davis.
Good evening, council. This is very concerning to the residents and myself about the time frame and not having a cost already settled in this contract. This is where we need to get some order with how we do things. Now, we just voted on 3 bonds for 115 million or more, whatever. And we knew that we had a dire strait project of our water department. I came up here, last year, year before, and said that this was the most important project in the city of Riviera Beach. We should have been voting on a bond to do this project before we did a park. We should have allocated the bond voting for the water department for the 55 million. And yes, we do want to know why it's $300 million now. All of this stuff should have been laid out last year with a bond. Now it's going to delay us even further, and we need this water plant because we don't know how long we're going to keep on having to put a Band-Aid on this old one and the water keep leaking out of it and going into the pipes. So, I mean, into people's homes. So we really, really need to figure this thing out before they come back up here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davis.
Julie Botel.
Welcome, Dr. Patel.
Good evening, Chair, Council, Mayor, staff. It's a pleasure to be here. I want to thank the team for doing such a great job of a deep dive into doing it the right way. We know it's taken a long time, but this is the most important project that we have as a city. So I'm glad to know that you're taking the time to do it right. So thank you. But my question is about the cost. I also am concerned about that. But at a recent meeting, it was stated that the city doesn't have the funding to pay for the water treatment plant. And needless to say, the residents who were in attendance at that meeting were quite shocked and alarmed. And I assured them that I could get an explanation if I just came and asked. So I'm hoping this evening at some point we can have an explanation as to where the money is coming from, because I know it's going to come from somewhere, and it's not that we don't have it. We will get the money to pay for the water treatment plant. As I said, it's the most important thing that we have to do for the citizens of Riviera Beach. So I hope this evening I can have an explanation about how that treatment plant will be funded. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, that's the end of public comments.
Thank you. Additional comments from the board or questions? Vice Chair, go ahead.
Yeah, I just still do have some concern, and we need to really have some conversation about it. The issue here is, when we talk about 5 years, that's when this current council came on board, and we were talking about a water plant. We went through different, processes and RFPs and pulled back and put back out in terms of a water plant. So it has taken that amount of time, maybe not with this particular group, but in general, in terms of trying to get a water plant. And we're still trying to get a water plant. Now, when we talk about the cost, I'm having some serious heartburn about where we are in terms of cost, because it seems as if the costs are, I'm not saying made up as we go, but the cost keep incurring, and we have no set price in terms of, okay, let's build this water plant for $90 million, and that's it. The way we're going is that whatever issue comes up, whatever we need to do or whatever happens, then we just kind of tack that money onto it. That having this open check for the water plant, which is sorely needed, which we needed like yesterday, but we don't want to spend more money than we have to. I've said that in Orlando and different other locations, they built water plants for $80 million. So I really want to find out why we are at that amount of cost, and the fact that we keep incurring costs for this, but not knowing what the end game is in terms of the final cost. That is my question.
Thank you, Board Member.
Sure.
Board Member Miller Anderson, go ahead.
I do understand that, construction costs are continuing to rise. So I do factor that in, but at what point will we get to where we're able to lock in a price? Is there ever a point where we're going to be able to say, okay, this is what it is, and this is what it's going to be? Because if we don't do that, I mean, we could be almost up to 500, 600, 700 million, especially with the way construction costs are increasing.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Board Member. Mayor?
To be candid, board members, and I think this price is just basically for the construction and the membrane, right? I think the council needs to look at an overall view. You said a price that can very well be a price, Councilwoman Miller Anderson, because we're not addressing any of the underground structure, right? What I would like to see the team do is give us a price. Okay, what is the membrane moving to L, the membrane, and then what is going to be a price for infrastructure? Because we're not changing any of our underground piping, right? And so if we can phase this out and maybe work with the team to say, in 3 phases, let's come up with a price that is going to be to get a new membrane, fix some of the pipes if needed, if they see that the structure is up underneath broken. Because one thing I don't want to do is we build a membrane, we don't address any of the issues that's up under the ground, and when the water hits these people tap, it's still the same color. So there's a lot of issues I think that we have to address that has not been addressed in over 60 years. You did say one thing, Pro Tem, I'd like to know is where the $80 million water plant is built, but I can guarantee you, it's more complicated than what we think. And I don't know if it can be a cost, because they're going to, we're building where a gas station used to be. We used to pump gas. It's a lot of various things that we have to look at. And I don't know if we can come up with an accurate cost. I hope they can give us a roundabout where we can work. But I think we're jumping the gun to ask for, that's why I think we messed up the first place. And it's 200 million, right? I don't think that really came from them. I think this 200 million has been floating around, and I question that, right? And so, and I like them to explain really how that price may have varied from 200 million, but I think they came to our team and say, please don't say that again, because it's not an accurate cost. But I think it's a lot of stuff this board needs to look at, and it's just not the water plant itself. Let's talk about some of the underground infrastructure that has not been changed either in over 60 years. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair,
Dr. Spears, go ahead.
Can she?
I do agree with,
Actually, I apologize, Dr. Spears. Ms. Miller Anderson did have a question. If we could address the GMP, and then we'll go back to you, Dr. Spears. Thank you.
Yeah,
Go ahead, ma'am.
just wanted to specifically answer the question that was asked of when will we know?
And if you could state your name for the record.
Suzanne Meckler,
Thank you,
part of the
Suzanne.
joint venture of Haskell and CDM Smith. Thank you.
Thank you.
We submitted a 30% design for the project, and that is now being priced. So prior to that, we've been pricing what I would call very preliminary information, right? So now we have design drawings, we have specs, we're being able to price that information right now. So as that's getting priced, we will have a more realistic number, okay? And then the next step is a 60%. After the value engineering's happened, we'll move on to 60%. At that stage, we will also, again, do a detailed price. After the 60%, that's essentially what we're saying is the project cost. Now, I will say that it is our project cost, right? There are potentially other costs within the city that are not part of our project distribution system, raw water system, that's other areas. But for our project cost, we'll have a 60% cost. And with that information, we will put those documents out on the street for competitive bidding. Okay, those competitive bids will come back and that will be the basis of our guaranteed maximum price, which is a final essentially price, right? That's a maximum price. And that will be the information that we'll be able to move forward to pause the project, right? PO, so we don't deal with other issues coming around, right? That's kind of the end game. Is that help answer that question as far as timeline? Okay, thank you.
And Ms. Suzanne, I'm sorry, I had a follow-up with that. I'm not really sure. Did we hear when?
So our 60%, the way we presented it today, is planning to be submitted in August. Okay, so we're going to do the value engineering. That value engineering then translates to a 60% submittal in August. We will price that submittal. Once everybody's in agreement, including the owner's rep, that we're good to go with that submittal, we will put it out on the street and get competitive pricing. And that usually takes to really get good market pricing 8 weeks. And so somewhere between, I would say fall time, late fall, we'll have an official guaranteed maximum price number.
Thank you, Ms. Suzanne. And Dr. Spiritus, go ahead. Board member.
City Manager Evans, can you please tell me, I'm not sure, can you tell me what the bonding limit is for the utility district?
Yes, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mr. Evans, go ahead.
Mr. Sherman, our finance director can come up and share some information, but I did want to address some of the items that were provided for in the commentary by the board. Certainly, you have to look at the water treatment plant in phases. You have to look at the phase as it relates to the water treatment process, and then you have the distribution lines, you have the wells or what have you. So when you look at it holistically, it is a pretty hefty price tag. However, I can tell you that we as staff working with our partners are going to pursue every opportunity and every funding source available for the purposes of beating down the costs associated with that, as well as the owner's rep. The reason that in this particular presentation you did not see a number that was up there is because the JV team in collaborations with the owner's reps are going to go through every particular line item for the purpose of the project and find out what are the things that costs have gone up, what are things that costs have gone down, and what is the best value for the city moving forward. And so we are making sure that subsequent numbers that we do present are as accurate as possible. Certainly, when we did get into the conversation with regards to the water treatment plant, we originally thought the water treatment plant, and we were looking at plant, was anywhere between that $115 to $150 million. And that when that number started increasing, it was associated with the plant itself. Then you obviously see some other elements, but we are going to be making investments like we have done in the distribution line, and that's part of our, operation and maintenance program. We are going to be making improvements on our well. So when we do come back with you, you'll see the different phases of the entire system. But the main core of what the function is right now is looking at the water treatment plant and then the subsequent elements. So, Mr. Sherman, if you want to get up here and speak up with regards to the bonding capacity and what would be necessary for the city to acquire the utility district, to acquire the necessary funds to fund the project.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Randy Sherman, District Finance Director. So that's a very interesting question. Because the utility, again, operates as its own entity, okay? And the bonding capacity is formula-driven. So the way it really works is take all the revenues to the utility district. We then pay all of the operating expenses. And then what's left is available for debt service, okay? What isn't used for debt service can then go into pay-as-you-go capital. Now, we are required that when we get to that debt service amount, we cannot use 100% of that debt service. We have to have 125% in that bucket of the debt service. So if our debt service is, just for simplicity, $10 million, then we have to have $12.5 million available. That's that coverage requirement that we're required to have. So right now, do we have debt service capacity for this project? We do not, okay? And it's a process that really we have to go and allow those dominoes to fall into place. We cannot adopt the rates that'll give us that 125% coverage of the debt service until we know what that GMP amount is. Okay, so while we increased rates last year, if you recall, that was to pay the ECR that we didn't pay the year before. It was to provide some pay-as-you-go capital and then take care of the inflationary costs of the operating budget. And at that time, we said, we will need to come back when we know what that GMP amount is. So how those rates will ultimately be structured, I can't tell you at this point. You know, it's all going to depend again on what that cost is, what of those costs we can offset, whether it's from grants, debt forgiveness, you know, value engineering, however we come down and come up to that ultimate amount that needs to be financed, then we can set those rates, providing that, you know, our growth estimates and, you know, for the utility customers, you know, we have to go through a full analysis on that and then generate those rates that'll then be able to cover the cost. So as far as the cost and covering it, again, that's really one of those first dominoes that need to fall before we can really start to decide where we're going on that. All we have at this point is the project is in the CIP, and the board has approved financing, whatever form, shape that takes. But again, all those other things that's just the framework. All those other things and the details will come together again. That GMP is really the linchpin.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, that's finished.
Mr. Sherman, we've gotten guesstimates now from the engineers of approximately $300 million. Might be more if we have to do the distribution lines. There's only 5 miles of distribution line in here, and that's just to connect the 2 plants, really. Can you do a pro forma for us so we would know what the rates would increase if it was a $300 million bond?
We can. I can work with the rate consultant. And again, the members that were here last summer, we did have, you know, sort of a pro forma. Again, the cost was again a guesstimate at that point, but we certainly can refresh that and bring that back to the board.
Thank you. Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Mr. Evans? Just a couple of questions concerning the plant itself and the design and everything. I guess we're going to move forward with what we have here now. But I just want to make sure that we do get all of these numbers, as Pro Tem said, Co-Chair, so we can make educated decisions on what we're voting on. Right now, everything seems to be up in the air. I assume our staff is working with the engineers with respect to the revolving loan program with the state to meet the August deadline. I think I met with our engineers. I think they are working with your staff and other consultants to make sure that we meet, and our lobbyists to make sure that we meet the August deadline for the state's revolving loan program.
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Evans, go ahead.
Yes, we've had some very robust conversations with not just our owner's rep, but also the JV team from Haskell and CDM Smith with regards to assisting us in going through the state revolving loan fund. Also, we've had conversations with a majority of the board members concerning looking for federal appropriations and to obviously obtain any monies through the other departments, and on the state level looking for state appropriation. Staff is going to be very bullish as it relates to attempting to get some assistance from other entities that are in the space. Also, one of the things that I think is germane to the conversation and the discussion, and I know it's come up, is there options to basically connect with other municipalities or other entities for the purposes of providing potable water supply? And so we are actually doing that analysis, and preliminary information that we have based on person's experience says that that would actually be more costly. You would lose local control, and then at the end of the day, you would still be paying for the capacity that the other entities will look to bring forward. So we hope when we come back before you all, we have more information that you can chew on, that has a little bit more substantive elements containing the price and what are some of the treatment processes. But we are, accelerating the things that we can on our side to address some of the concerns that have been expressed, obviously by your constituents and the board itself.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
City Manager Evans, the American Rescue Plan, we're going to be trying to meet with our members of Congress to get an appropriation through the American Rescue Plan as well.
Sure, if I may.
Evans, go ahead.
Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, I do want to also, when we did receive the monies from the federal government, roughly about $18 million, it was this board that facilitated investing that in the capital cost or the startup cost to facilitate moving this particular project forward. So when we said, and it has been said that this has been a priority project, it has been a priority project because the $18 million that you did receive that you could have allocated for a variety of different things went exclusively and total to the water treatment plant. Plus, you did spend another additional $1.9 million to acquire the property that fronts Blue Heron for the purposes of making sure it's contiguous with the property on Avenue L for acquiring the land mass necessary to build the water treatment plant. So there has been progress and steps that have occurred that have facilitated this project moving forward. And then obviously the engineers can share with you that anytime you're providing that potable water, and the permitting process is pretty arduous, and they've successfully been able to get the consumptive use permit, the necessary permits from the state and the regulatory agencies to be able to move forward with the project. So we should see a lot of movement here in the next couple of months and into the first quarter of the next fiscal year, where there will actually be construction-related activities and you seeing a water treatment plant coming out of the ground.
Thank you, Mr. Evans.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Comes from the board.
Mr.
Mayor.
Chair.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, let me let Dr. Spears finish and then come back to you, Mayor. Go ahead, Dr. Spears.
We're being asked, so I'm going back to what I guess the main reason we were here for was to pick one of the design plans. Can we find out what the difference is? There's a 40% increase, but what are you talking about in dollars and cents?
Unfortunately, the estimators didn't give me that. They only gave me percentages because they didn't want a number to be remembered because there's going to be still some refinements through our value engineering and then the design progresses. They did not give me a value, unfortunately, though.
So there's no ballpark number?
They did not give me any of that. Sorry, sir.
And that was my exact question, because I can't give you an expected option or follow-up of 40% of what, 100% of what? Because I don't even know what the baseline is. If you're telling us that you want a baseline for construction, what is that baseline?
Understand. I will work with the estimators.
So they didn't give you a baseline either?
They did not. They just said that this is the cheapest option. This option's 40% more and this one's double.
Yeah, I wouldn't be comfortable giving that type of opinion because I have no idea what the baseline looks like. Mayor, go ahead.
Question, when can you guys have a baseline?
I can work with the estimators and provide you feedback in the next couple of weeks.
Okay. Mr. Evans, well, while you're up here asking, is the 300 million, is that a good number for the performer?
I want to work with Riviera and the consultant Brown Caldwell before I want to work with them as a team so we agree on the value that we present to you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Evans, out of the 18 million, how much of that is left? Is that specifically for UD?
But
yes, that particular amount of money was transferred and approved by both the city council and the utility district. And that money was provided for. As it relates to the remaining balance, I would have to defer to the finance director, Mr. Sherman, to provide you with that information.
Okay, Mr. Sherman.
Sherman.
Oh, on the 18 million. I want to say it was about a month ago I looked. We had about 10 million left, and I'm assuming we've made another payment, so we're probably in the $8 to $9 million still remaining. And we have until December to spend that 18 million.
To December of this year?
I'm sorry?
This year?
December 2024, yes.
Mr. Chair?
Mayor, are you done?
Yes.
Go ahead, Dr. Spears.
Does that mean How much was our agreement on the engineering? Is there a specific cost to the engineering and design work?
There is, but again, offhand, I don't know. I don't know if Mr. Lowe, you have a number?
It's between 16 and 17 million. It's the total cost. And then there's about another 900 and something thousand that goes to the owner's representative as well.
So the $18 million will be enough to cover the cost of design and engineering?
That was the intent, yes.
I know that's what the
It's-
intent was,
it
but
was-
will it be enough?
That it's a fixed price, so yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
thank you.
Director Lowe, question in regards to what you just said. Of that 16,900,000 goes to the owner's rep?
No, there's a separate payment to the owner's representative to
Of,
cover all of the people that they have who are monitoring. As, for instance, if we have a meeting on electrical, they have electrical people present to work alongside us as we evaluate whatever
is that for the
decision,
entire project, or is that just based on the spending of the 16 million?
just on getting through the phase one of the project.
Okay.
The percentages are in line with what the industry would expect. I mean, that work has been done. We did go through all of that exercise up front.
Sure.
So, Dr. Spritters, go ahead.
So does that mean that the 16 million is excluding those funds for the owner's rep?
Correct.
So then we may not have enough money to finish the design and engineering from that 18 million. So we're going to have to come up with additional money to cover the design and engineering above and beyond the 18 million.
Now, if we have 18 million, will you say 900,000, a million is going to the owner's rep, the other 17 is for the design portion.
Okay.
So we should, and again, that, as Mr. Lowe said, that is a fixed cost, so.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Question, Mr. Sherman. So we do have this, because out of 18 million, you said, we probably have 8 or 9 million left out of that.
Correct.
We have to spend that money before December.
By the end of December,
So do we have
correct.
to put more money with that? The 17 or 18 that he's talking about, Mr. Lowe?
Oh, no, he's talking about what the number Mr. Lowe has given you includes what we've already spent. I mean, that's,
Okay, so that's part
what
of
we've spent, we'll say $9 million we've spent is part of those numbers.
Thank you, Mayor. Vice Chair?
Yeah, I have another question. The way that you explain how this works in terms of building in phases. So you're telling me that if I were building a house, I would do the roof and then I'll give you a price for the doors and then I'll give you a price for I don't understand that. I don't understand how it is that we don't have a price of what the thing costs. And I understand that the costs are variable and I understand they may fluctuate, but to what extent? And we are looking at a situation where, as I said before, we went from 100 to 3. And now you're saying that in terms of how we bond it, that you may have to raise water rates to be able to fund it. They're already, number one, high enough. And then the second thing is, once the plant is built, how are you going to operate? How much does that cost? I mean, we haven't even figured in that cost in terms of operation of the plant once it's done. So we're looking at a lot of costs and they're just like all in the air. And I really cannot get a handle on how much this water plant is costing us because we still have these 30%. We have the design, which is 40% of something we don't know. This does not sound right to me. This is not sounding right. Because what's happening is that all I asked for was a cost of the water plant. And I went 30 minutes around the world about what that means and where it was coming from. Because the question, of course, naturally is how are we going to pay for it? Because we don't even know how much it is. And then, as I said before, when you're talking about bonding it and using the revenue from the water department to be able to fund it, then you're talking about increasing water rates. So, this is really has to, and I understand that the water department, the water plant, the water treatment plant is the most important thing that we have on the table right now. It is the most important. But what we're doing is the way that we're doing is, and you're telling me that you're gonna fund 30% over here, and then we're gonna do the walls, and then we'll do another 40%, we'll do the roof. I can't do that. I can't get my mind around how that is working, because any structure, whether it be the Empire State Building and whether it be this water treatment plant, I should know how much it costs now. Those are my comments. And I also just want to say that we need to get a cost on how much it's going to cost to operate it once it's done.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Additional comments from the board? So my only comments are Ms. Susan, I believe you stated that the GMP we'd be looking at late fall for the GMP price. I think the timeline of getting everything moving is the concern of this board, and holding to that. Originally, it was early spring. The last meeting that we had was summertime, and now it's late fall, just because of how the flow of this. We can't continue to have delays. So if there's anything on our side that needs to be done to expedite this, please let us know. We need to get this water plant up and running as soon as possible. So we need to make sure we provide and continue to provide great service for our residents. This burden has fallen on this board, and we've taken the initiative to get it done. And we want to get it done, but our goal is to get it done in an expedited fashion, but make it affordable for our residents. It's a catch-22, I know. It's going to be difficult. At the same time, we have to address something that hasn't been addressed in 20 years. So, Mr. Evans, thank you for the work on this, but we have to get this done now. Please give us some insight as to this GMP by fall. If that's what's being put on the record, that's what we want to stick to, because the last time it was summer and before it was spring. Director Lowe, the follow-up with the replacement project, with where we are currently and looking for a GMP by fall, what, as of staff within the city of Riviera Beach, needs to be done to make sure that we get that GMP by fall? Is there anything else that we have to do on our side?
I don't believe so. My staff is working with the owner's rep on all of these meetings. I speak with Mr. Grace and his team almost every single day. This is the most crucial point that we're at now, this 30% level. This is where you ensure that you eliminate errors that are going to cost you money in the future. And to pick up on the point of the Vice Chair, this is also where we start to get a good insight onto the cost of operation. There are going to be some decisions here related to cost versus operating cost. It might be that I can buy a pump that's slightly more expensive, but it's more efficient, and it costs me less overall the life of the project to do that. It's cheaper to borrow the money than to spend the money on operating costs later. So you bring up a very important point, and that is why this part of the process is so important. The fact that we, A, get to a design, B, eliminate those things that we don't need or find a cheaper way of doing something, and 3, we get a clear idea of what the cost is going to be. We must do that right. We can speed up other operations once we get to that point.
And Director Lowe, I was in Washington the last 2 years. The first question they've asked in Washington and Tallahassee is, what is the cost? What is it going to cost to build this project? And we don't have a project cost to give to them. So that's why the appropriations are limited when it comes to saying, okay, well, if you don't have a set cost, we're going to go ahead and allocate funds for projects that are ready to go. We need this GMP price. So if it's going to fall back on, if you and the owner's rep have already done their part, Haskell, we're going to ask that you guys expedite this for us. We need to know what this cost is so we can really prepare our residents and look at every step possible. Mr. Evans, I'm going to reserve some comments for talking about the water bill, how we can kind of address some of the concerns that are going to be coming down the pipeline, and what we can do to start working on this impact now during our commissioner comments. So please, if we can address that as well. Additional comments from the board?
Just one more thing.
Vice Chair, go ahead.
I'm still stuck on the fact that we don't know how much it costs. I mean, that's just plain. How much does the water plant cost? And we're still put that money, talking about 16 million here, 1 million here, and we still don't know the cost. So I got a real problem with that. So I would be calling you guys tomorrow morning, because clearly something is not being said here that maybe you need to tell me something else. I don't know, but this is not working for me at all, because these prices are up and down. you're telling me you're gonna build this part for this amount, and then we'll let you know how much this costs. That doesn't work for me at all. So we will be in touch.
Mr. Chair.
Mayor, go ahead.
And because I know we're saying this publicly, and I know some residents are wondering what's going on, could you explain to us how many water plants you guys have built?
Personally, I've been the lead designer for over 25, maybe 30 plants in my career.
25, 30 plants. And so this process that you're talking about, I understand pro tem because we don't have a cost, but what's the process? I think Mr. Lowe kind of explained it to getting us a concrete cost. I mean, it's you just can't come with something out of your head that it's going to cost this much. So can you run it down just for residents that's listening?
So if it's okay, I would, Vice Chair, I would like to respond to one of your questions that you had brought up earlier, provide a clarification. The packages that I was referring to were packages related to geographic areas, like we're going to do Avenue L, we're going to do Avenue U, we're going to do the raw water transmission mains, we're going to do the finished water transmission mains. I apologize if we gave you the wrong conception that we were going to break it out into different parts and pieces within each site. We're going to do a site and do the construction as it pertains to following the critical path of making sure that everything is done in time to receive the beneficial use. So that's the part of the packaging that I know we could talk about, quite often or extensively. One of the clarifications that Suzanne Meckler provided was the clarification pertaining to the cost model. So we were using, when you prepare a basis of design report, you use parametric estimating, okay? You don't use a quantity takeoff. We now have drawings and specifications where our estimators are doing takeoffs. How many volume, what's the quantity of pipe, size and lengths? What is the volume of concrete that's going to be poured, so on and so forth. And they come up with a detailed estimate, okay? That is where we are right now. We are doing a detailed quantity takeoff, and we're real close to providing you what we call an OPCC, an opinion on probable cost of construction, that will give you what you need, which is much better than the parametric costs that have been discussed. They've been discussed in this meeting, already. We've already communicated the 300 number. Well, we are working diligently with the district and with the owner's rep, Brown and Caldwell, to look for ways to reduce cost, to accomplish the same design intent, where we provide you the best drinking water facility and all of the facilities that are part of the scope of work that we're providing you at the least cost. Okay, so we were initially planning to have the 60% documents completed at Avenue L this summer, but what we're doing is we're taking our foot off the accelerator, and we're doing that detailed value engineering effort that, as I described in my slide, is going to take us through April, May, June, and then all of the findings of where we can revise the design to save you money are going to be implemented, and then we will then incorporate those VE ideas into the 60% design documents that we will prepare and issue in August. Okay, so at August, we now then mobilize our estimators. The estimators do a detailed quantity takeoff of the 60% complete design documents, which are far better than the 30. And that 60% will be incorporating all of the VE ideas. So I just wanted to walk you through that process. I didn't mean to confuse or give anyone the wrong conception.
Mr. Chair.
Mayor, did you have another follow-up? Was that it? Go ahead, Dr. Spiritus.
Director Lowe, can you, I know that you're doing an I&I right now and a TV study of all the distribution lines, is that correct?
We've done a study of the distribution lines. We're doing TV I&I study of about 10 miles of pipe. We have the I&I study that has directed us as to where we would do the TVing. I'm waiting for that to be completed. the data will come to us in the standard industry format, which allows us to pick out which lines are the best, which are the worst. We, the way in which the currently funded CIP is put forward, and it brings up the important points that the mayor was talking about. We have an annual allocation that we are already in our rates, working on what to do with the distribution system, how to change out pipes, how to deal with the gravity system, lining of pipes, overhaul of pumping stations, overhaul of the wells. We've got a specific fund in there to renew the line, put additional lines over to Singer Island and the project there that's multiple millions. That's already accounted for in the last rate study that was done. So we have ongoing capital plans there. We will constantly relook at them. If we get more information that says, you know, we need to accelerate this program, or this one doesn't need to go as fast, we will adjust it. We have been remarkably successful in the last 18 months at overhauling pumping stations at a much lower cost than was originally identified in some studies that were done. So if we can continue those sorts of efforts to do the overhauls that are necessary, but at the same time constrain the costs, it will work to our benefit going forward.
Mr. Chair?
Spears, go ahead.
So, Director Lowe, can we expect in August, I think it would be a good idea, if we're going to go out and bond for this project, for the water plant, it'd be a good idea to bond at the same time for any improvements needed to the rest of the distribution system, so we don't have to do this twice. So if you can come up with some numbers at that time, that would be great.
Absolutely. We're meeting again with the rate consultants later this week, and that's all part of the overall plan because it's got to be accommodated for. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Additional comments from the board? So just to follow up, I know you guys asked for an opinion. Me personally, I would not be able to give an opinion without knowing what that 40% looks like. At least the base price. That would be unfair to give that assessment, to say I want to just assess 40% of a price. I have no idea what it is. So I wouldn't be comfortable with that tonight, but if any of the board wants to opine on that?
No.
Additional comments? Okay. Thank you so much for the presentation. We look forward to this groundbreaking moving forward and actually turning that tap. So thank you. Thank you. Mr. Evans? I'm sorry, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Chair, did you want to do the general public comments at this time?
Yes, I'll read the comment. Public comment shall begin at 5:45 unless there's no further business of the city, in the event which shall begin sooner. Please be reminded the city board, the utility district has adopted the rules of decorum governing public comment during official meetings, which has been posted at the front desk. In an effort to preserve order, if there's any rules adhered to, the board may have any disruptive speaker attendee removed from the podium, from the meeting, or from the building. Please govern yourselves accordingly. Madam Clerk, comment?
Mr. Chair, we do have two public comment cards. The acceptance of the cards is now closed. The first speaker will be Mary Brown, followed by Erica Davis.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
You're welcome.
It's Mary Brown. Good evening to the chair, pro chair, as well as board. I was listening to the presentation, and I'm quite sure that we do want to move as speedily as we can, but the main important thing is to get it right, We have endured this for centuries of times. And I was listening to some of what the presentation was saying about the package. Your package will consist of your pipe length, the construction, the concrete, things of that nature too. And I know that lands and stuff was being swapped out to expand where they are anticipating on building over on that corridor there. And we have to take into consideration, in order to have this plant built a unique way, we must get it right. And I'm all in agreement for that. but we have delayed. So when they come back again, I am asking them to give us something concrete, just like you're gonna build that plant in concrete or whatever. Give us something in concrete so that we can say that, yes, this will be built proceeding in 2026 or 2027. But our main thing that I would always be focusing in getting it right, because a lot of times hastily decisions has been made within the boards, and this is what has caused this city so much delays, when we would have to go back and go back and go back, because it is the mindset that governs we as the people. We are the people, but you sit as that governing board to make sure that those I's are dotted and those T's are crossed. So as a resident, and I know that other residents hear me because it is some other things, coalition groups all over the city has been congregating with Ms. Brown, and we want to get it right. This is our first initiative of bonds. This is another thing that this city has made a history in. So all of our facilities and stuff, we want to get it right. We want the packages to consume up, and it is always hidden costs too. Now you as a board, you have to look at those things too. The prices has increased, everything has increased. And those hidden prices and those hidden concepts and those hidden implementations of what we're trying to do, we don't know. They can't tell you neither. So, but what they can tell, and I'm hoping that they proceed with that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Brown.
Erica Davis.
Welcome, Ms. Davis.
Erica Davis. She said exactly what I wanted to say up here. This was brought to you guys in 2019 when Mr. Evans came back. We had a whole different team then. This thing is costing us money. Every time you guys tend to ignore the important factors of projects, it costs us money with consultants. I mean, with all the different things that we need, the Band-Aid on this one, it's costing us money. The money that we're spending over here on the old one, that $12 million that Mr. Sherman was talking about, could have been put there so we could have gotten a bond. It is very crucial and serious that you guys pay attention and do your homework and communicate with Mr. Evans. It will save us a whole lot of money. If you all knew all of these things, this is a year later. But it could have been done, almost done in 2019. It could have been started and finished by now. I mean, you guys got to get it together. You got to know what you're talking about. You got to know what he's talking about. These projects are important. If you don't know the ins and outs of projects and development, then you need to study it, because you are costing us money. Again, I'm going to bring up this marina. It's costing us money. It costs us money with consultants. It has cost us so much money playing around. It's serious. This man brought this to you. You know how serious it was to the residents, and you fell on it, just like the previous boards did. Now you want to hurry and make them, push them to do this and that, and this cost, the cost has gone up. It's ridiculous. Just do your job. We're paying you to do your job. Ask questions. Do your homework. If you don't know, communicate with him. All of this stuff you should have known about the piece by piece cost that it was going to be. You all should have known that. We shouldn't be even talking about that. You knew we needed a bond. What he just explained to you about $12 million, you should have known that. It's like every project, there's a problem because you don't do your homework and you don't communicate. Do your job. You only have, 11 months, 12 months to get it together. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. Madam
Mr.
Clerk?
Chair, that is the end of public comment.
Thank you. 9A?
Discussion by Executive Director, item 9A, presentation on the water quality report for the past 30 days. Mr. Chair, we do have 2 public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards is now closed.
Thank you. Mr. Evans?
Mr. Chair and members of the board, if I got the director of the utility district, Mr. Michael Lowe, to make the presentation.
Okay, Mr. Chair, thank you. Sorry for the quick delay. This report is meant to be in part educational. The idea is to give everybody an idea of what goes behind all the testing that's undertaken by the district over the course of any particular month, and how we're then monitored by the various agencies. So we do a number of different testings. Firstly, there's a lot of microbiological testing that's done, and there's two different systems that are checked. We have already got an agreement with the Department of Health over the 42 sample points within our distribution system, and their location is all agreed ahead with the Department of Health. We're actually looking at needing to shortly increase the number of sample points because it's based upon the population served. So as we get more people move into the area, we're required to have more sample locations. Every location must be sampled at least once per month. They're not all sampled on the same day. At the same time, we also are required once per month to take samples from every operational well. These samples are tested, microbiological samples are tested for total coliform and fecal E. coli positive. So those are the two tests that are undertaken. Those are the normal tests that are taken with potable water. If we are trying to deal with like the reports on the ocean, they do other testing for different bacteria at that point. All of those samples, when we get them back, we need to react immediately to any issues. And we'd send everything by the 11th of the next month over to the Department of Health for their review. At the same time, in the plant, we have to send out what we call the MRR, which is it's basically the operating report for the month, the monthly operating report. The operators in the plant, who are all licensed, and we must always have a licensed operator on site 24/7, every day of the year, they are taking readings on a 2-hourly basis on what is being produced and what is being sent out into the distribution system. They also were recording all of the chemical usage, rainfall, and other data. And that is all sent in a comprehensive report over to the health department at the end of the month, at the same time as the other data. Additionally, we have this consumptive use permit from the South Florida Water Management District. And we are sending them, the consumptive use permit restricts how much water we can take from any particular location within the well field, and we report on that on a monthly basis to them as well. So everything has to be properly prepared, signed off by the relevant individuals, and then sent off to the agencies by the 11th of the next month. They will then respond to anything that they see within that data. For the last month, and in fact, through the course of this year, we've had no exceedances at all on any of our reporting. All the routine microbiological samples have passed. All the MRR data has been in line, the monthly operating reports. We also, in March, had a special quarterly test for what's called disinfection byproducts. Because you're using the chloramines to disinfect the water, it can react with other materials that are in the water in tiny quantities, and they get what are called disinfection byproducts. They're at very, very low levels in the water, but we are required to do analysis on a quarterly basis And then the agencies look at a rolling 12 months. And that's the basis upon which they would want any action. We also did some monitoring for wells we have some monitoring wells that are dealing with storage facilities and the like. And we did do testing. We have to do it in the wet season and the dry season. We did dry season testing last month. Some of them were delayed because the wells were dry. There was no water, so we couldn't take a sample. But that tends to happen in the dry season. So that is the end of the report, but that's how we monitor everything so people understand that there's a lot of work going on in the background on a daily basis.
So Director Lowe, just to be clear, so this report that you're giving is a report for the past 30 days?
It's just to tell you, yes, the last 30 days. And as I said earlier, there's been nothing, in fact, in this calendar year.
Okay. And we have two public comment cards, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Chair, we have 2 public comment cards on this item.
Thank you. We'll take public comment, Director Lowe, and then any questions from the board. Thank you, sir.
First speaker for public comment will be Erica Davis.
Welcome, Ms. Davis.
Hello. I just want to say I'm happy that our water is okay, being that we had so much uproar about it. That's another thing that I came up here to speak about because it was very unnecessary. I know it was for political reasons, and it was unnecessary and it was ridiculous. Second of all, I don't think anybody brought up the point to any of the residents that with their water being brown, if their house was like over 40 years old, that they should check the pipes in their yards that comes through their spigots. If they have iron pipes, it could be contaminating their water as well. And they need to switch to PVC pipes. I don't think anybody brought that up. So that's something that I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am.
Next is Mary Brown.
Welcome, Ms. Brown.
Ms. Vera Brown, again, to the board in its entirety and everybody that is representing this. Sometimes we have to go in a different direction in order to get where we are going at. And I am pleased to hear that we are moving in the right directions, not saying that we were not. But sometimes in order to move in the directions that we desire to move in, it is things that are always brought to light because we are all human. But I was listening to Mr. Lowe's report because I'm for one that have said many years and moons that water is life. And in this city, every baby, every child, every senior, every adult, we depend on our lifeline, which is water. And for us to have those 49, I'm sure it was 42 different samples, and we passed that. The microbiological that was there, that passed. The other samples and stuff that was submitted in the March, that was a plus. So we are going there, and we are getting there, and we will continue to get there because our new plant will have that safety network that will incorporate our homes, our businesses, because we are moving as a city to build. So how can I expect for others to come and live if we do not have all of this adequacy put in place to make us to continue to be the best place to live, work, and play? So I am pleased to hear this report. And as we approach next month, and the next month, and the next month after that, I hope that we continue on this pathway. A lot of times we have a lot of things to set in our ears and they set in our heart, but we as a city, we always have to look at the good. And we will always have some bad somewhere. but that does not mean that we do not work through it. And that is the journey of you as representatives, as well as the managerial staff, and as well as we as residents. In order to have these things the way that we know that they should be as a city, it takes all of us. And that's where that unity body comes in at. And not so much of throwing everybody underneath the bus. Let's see how can we have some open-mindedness. Let's see how can we meet each other at the table so that you can walk away. We as residents can walk away. But the biggest take that we can ever achieve is to make our city the greatest city.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Madam. Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, that's the end of public comment.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Questions from the board?
Yeah.
Dr. Spears, go ahead.
This is a question for the mayor. Mayor, I believe you said that there was an investigation being done by OIG on this matter. Can you please speak to that?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Mayor, go ahead.
Yes, the OIG is doing an investigation from the June incident of last year. I spoke with them last Wednesday. They're doing a thorough investigation. They assured me that, again, they expedited it for our city, but they are really taking their time to comb through to see what happened in the June incident. So we should be hearing something within the next month or so, but they are working on it.
Thank you, Mayor. Additional comments from the board?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Board Member Lanier, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask the question about that as well, the June 3rd incident. Mr. Lowe and I had a very contentious meeting this morning in regards to that incident. We are almost in June again and have not heard anything about what happened with that incident, who was responsible, who we need to hold accountable. Nothing has been done about that. And I understand that there's a health department issue where you really can't talk about some of the fines or whatever the case may be, but the public has a right to know what happened that day, why it did not go as planned, why it did not go in terms of process or protocol. And the meeting that we had was just asking a simple question. Was the water safe on June the 3rd? And I cannot get an answer. And it is because Mr. Lowe says because of the health department, but it's almost another June. So I know that it does not take that long to figure out one simple question. And we need to know who was responsible for that. So because of that, you know, I did give the city utilities director grace and said, I'll just wait until this comes out. I'll wait until they get the information from the health department. I'll wait until they get the information from the attorney, from the Office of Inspector General. I'll wait until, but nothing has happened. And it does not take a year almost to be able to figure out what happened that day. And so I'm still asking the same question that I asked back in January, you know, what happened that day and who's responsible for it?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, go ahead.
Again, I want to read something into record from the director of the health department that I sent all members of this board and staff an email yesterday. DOH from Dr. Gunner. She is the director of the health department. DOH PBC is continuing to conduct its investigation of Riviera Beach water utility incident. DOH has not yet finalized the consent order and will communicate with the city once it is complete and accurate. Thank you. That is from the health department. And so what we don't want to do is allow anybody up here to give misinformation and they have not finalized their report. I understand, Pro Tem. I am a resident. My family is a resident. Been a resident here for 55 years. We want to know, but I also want an accurate investigation so we're not guessing. And it's a lot of stuff that they're looking into to find out this incident. Now, that happened in June. We didn't find out till January. We didn't find out again until I was invited to the health department to share, and I think that was February maybe. So, you know, I think the time that we're using to get this right and to be transparent with the community is paramount. And so we got two different entities working on this report. And I think we just, as a board, need to be patient and let them do their job. And the report will finalize and we'll know who knew what, when they knew. It's going to be that detailed. Who sent emails, who was email sent to. It's very detailed. But if you indulge me into letting them do their work, they will get it to us in the proper time where we as a board then can look and decide what steps need to be taken. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And Mr. Evans, you had a comment?
Yes, Mr. Chair, the item that the board was with regards to the health department, that is actually the next item on the agenda. This item was an item that, as a result of what occurred in June, was that we were going to do monthly reports with respect to the water quality, and that was going to be something that was standing on the agenda. So I did want to make sure that the board knows that every month we will be doing a water quality report, and that the intent behind that is to increase the transparency and communication with the board with regards to the state of the water and the water supply.
And that was my follow-up. Thank you, Mr. Evans. That was my follow-up. I know we're kind of jumping between the two items because it's been a very difficult, contentious item. The mayor did forward us an email from the Florida Department that they're still investigating. So thank you, Mayor, for staying on top of that. But the quality report is something that staff is going to be providing to us every month. So board, every month we will be getting a quality report so we can know what the waters look like so that we can have a continuation and have the residents know every month we are staying on top of this. So there's not going to be any lapse in judgment. There's not going to be lapse in time when it comes to what's happening with our water so that we won't go months as we did before without knowing what's the quality and what's the reports look like. So Director Lowe and Mr. Evans, thank you for bringing this to us, but we do need answers and we are waiting on those outside agencies. So with the healthcare update, Mayor, you've already addressed that via email and also stated it on the record. Did we have any additional comments from the board?
Sure.
Ms. Miller-Anderson, go ahead.
Well, I did just want to make mention that maybe like a week or so ago, I believe it was Channel 5, they did, I guess they went out and did some tests at different residents' homes. And their results indicated that those particular areas were fine. And so, you know, I know we're doing ours, but I was glad to see that, you know, and hear that because, you know, it has been an issue where we really don't know. And that was a little bit reassuring for an independent group to do that and for those particular areas to come out fine. So look forward to the every month reports.
Thank you. And Mayor, if you could do a follow-up as well. When was that email sent out to you? From the health department?
Yesterday.
So sent yesterday, okay.
Yes.
So they haven't given us a timeline as of yet?
No.
Thank you, Mayor. Just for the residents to be clear. Additional comments?
Yeah,
Vice Chair, go ahead.
yeah, I understand that. I really do. But as I said before, we're coming up on a year and we still don't know what happened on June the 3rd. And I understand that these entities are involved in terms of trying to figure out who did what went wrong. But I think that in the future, if something like this happens again, we should not have to wait for a year to figure out what happened.
And
Chair, I don't want to beat this with a dead horse, but let's have this conversation to be transparent, right? Who's over UD? Who makes the decisions for UD? Mr. Lowe?
In terms of
who makes the final decisions for UD? Decisions that has to be made. Who makes those decisions? Because we're going to keep going around this, and they're going to force us to have a transparent conversation in the public that we really don't need to have. But somebody just wants to know information. So if they want to go there, let's go there. I mean, who makes the decisions for UD?
on a day-to-day basis, I make decisions on the UD, but I do keep Ms. Jacobs and Mr. Evans, when necessary, informed of issues that are going on. And as you know, I have in fact called you as a board sometimes when there's been some issue going on, so that you're aware of the incident and what we're doing to handle it.
Okay, so Pro Tem is wanting to know why, since it's been a year, we have a director. What's Ms. Jacobs' role at UD, Ms. Evans?
She's the assistant city manager that handles the infrastructure-related departments.
And you're the city manager, right?
That is correct.
Do any of you guys know what went on that day? Could you give the pro tem an answer, being the city manager, assistant city manager, in the UD? She wants to know, who knows what happened? Because I mean, she's wanting an answer. She can't wait for the investigation. She needs an answer. Could you guys give her an answer?
Mr. Chair, if I
Mr.
may.
Evans, go ahead.
With respect to this item being under investigation, I don't think that this conversation is ripe for discussion as it relates to this particular item. Certainly, there has been information that has been furnished to the health department from city staff with regards to the incident that occurred back in June. But, not getting into the specificities, I can't provide great number because there's a voluminous amount of records that have been provided, and both two entities are in fact looking at that. So there is, the department directors run their respective departments, and then if there's issues or concerns, or there is communications with administration. But I guess from my perspective, I don't know exactly what we're trying to pull out as it relates to the question or the nature of the question, but it is under investigation. So usually our process is not to comment until the investigation is concluded.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have one more question.
Go ahead.
Mr. Lowe, when the water contamination happened, were you in town?
No, I was not.
Thank you, sir.
Chair,
Dr. Spears, go ahead.
a follow-up to the mayor's comments. City Manager Evans, you said that your assistant city manager is in charge of all infrastructure projects?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mr. Evans?
Infrastructure departments, so development services, utility special district, public works, and other departments, library and the like, but bulk of the responsibility handles with infrastructure related departments.
Mr. Chair?
Dr. Spears, go ahead.
Follow-up, Mr. Evans. Does your assistant city manager have engineering or infrastructure construction background?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mr. Evans?
With respect to us, talking specifically on one particular employee's credentials and experiences and background, with all due respect, I don't think that this is the appropriate venue to effectively speak on those particular matters. We have a lot of people that work in a variety of different disciplines, and we don't speak on their references or their background or their expertise or what have you. So, I respectfully request, Mr. Chair, that, I don't have to get into the specificities concerning persons' credentials, as this is not the appropriate venue, in my opinion.
Hey, Mr. Chair?
Dr.
can I
Spears,
follow?
go ahead.
I just want to follow up. I just think it's important for a city of this size, dealing with the infrastructure that it's dealing with, that the people in charge of infrastructure, construction, and maintenance should have an engineering and construction background to oversee these projects, especially if they're the people that are in charge and reporting directly to the city manager.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mr. Evans, go ahead.
With respect to that particular fact, we do have, I believe, 3 engineers in the utility special district that are staffers, and I think that may be the largest number of engineers we've carried in that particular department. So we do have the skill set and the bandwidth within the respective departments. In addition to, as an administrator, we're generalist, so we know a little bit about everything, but we don't know the nuances with respect to any of the operational elements, from fire to police or what have you. I've never been a police officer, never been a firefighter, but that's why we handle and hire respective professionals in those positions to help us run the day-to-day operations, as they are the subject matter experts.
Mr. Chair, can I follow up?
Dr. Spears, go ahead.
I just think it's important that the person who is in a decision-making position have the background and knowledge to know whether those engineers are giving them the proper information to make those decisions. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair?
Mayor?
Mr. Lowe, how long have you been working with water?
Water specifically since 2006, but in my prior experience before then, I was working in the food industry, and every plant I worked in also had a water plant. We did the same type of testing on all the materials. For instance, liquid sugar, every load that went out had microbiological testing.
Follow up, Mr. Chair.
Mayor, go ahead.
Do you make the decisions for your department? Being the director?
For the most part, I think I make all the decisions, yes. I mean, there are some decisions that get referred. If we're hiring, I will make a recommendation on hiring. It will go through the system. So, we make a recommendation. The individual has to be evaluated, background checks, etc., and ultimately a decision is made.
Mr. Chair?
Mayor, of course.
This is a very uncomfortable conversation. Ms. Evans, you are the CEO of this city, correct?
Mr. Chair, if I may? Yes, I'm the city manager, yes.
Why isn't the water department up under you, UD?
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Mr. Evans, go ahead.
With respect to the operational plan as the running the day-to-day operations of the city, I do have the ability to assign specific departments to specific individuals for the purposes of managing the day-to-day operations. So I handle the public safety related departments, and Ms. Jacobs has been assigned the infrastructure related departments, and specifically the utility district, as she's had to sit in that particular position as it relates to the executive director a number of times, and so has a good understanding of utility operations during her tenure with the city of Riviera Beach. But as it relates to those particular departments, it's because of the number of departments and direct reports that I have. Those departments were assigned to Ms. Jacobs as it relates to their infrastructure related and providing for direct oversight and involvement with those departments, just because of the sheer number of departments that I have that report directly to me.
Follow up, Mr.
Go ahead.
Does Ms. Jacobs have any credentials for UD?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mr. Evans?
With respect to speaking specifically on an employee's credentials in this particular forum, I don't think that this is the right forum to effectively get into the situations with regards to person's credentials and experience, especially when it's not an item that's provided for on the agenda and it's not germane to the conversation in which we are having.
Mr. Chair?
Mayor?
I don't either, but you have a council member on the other end. Ms. Pro Tem wants to know certain stuff that I think that you guys should know, because she can't wait for an investigation. So, I mean, this is why I said I don't want to go here, but if a person is forcing us to go here, these are the kind of questions that need to be answered.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Williamson?
are you finished? You finished, Mayor? Go ahead. And I'm just wanted to
I
let
mean,
you know.
I was asking the city manager that question. Because we could have cut this a long time ago, but it keeps going on and on that a person wants to know. And so this is going to bring this out. Because we can point fingers, right? And I kept saying, let the investigation do what it's going to do. This is not about one person. This is about a system that has failed. So for the folks that maybe think you had a person, it's not about a person. It's about a system. It's about an organization. And so stop thinking it's about a person. This is about a system. Is the system flawed? Let's get to the bottom of it. Because at the end of the day, I mean, it's about doing the right thing, right? It's not about us liking this person or that person or trying to make another person out to be the bad person. It's about a system that we're investigating, not a person. And let's make that clear. But respectfully, if I call an investigation, let the investigation do what it's going to do. Now, if a council person wants to know information, then we'll sit here and dig in it. And it's going to be very uncomfortable. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Williamson?
I just wanted to see if we could move forward with the agenda, and the reason being is because, I mean, we see where this is going, and it's not being productive at this point. A lot of speculations, talking about credentials. I mean, if truth be told, I mean, council, some of us weren't, we have a background in being responsible for making these rules and the laws and all of that for the city. So it's it just doesn't make any sense. We know there's an investigation, 2 investigations going on. So if we can get that information, of course, I want to hear it too, but I mean, right now it's just kind of getting petty at this point. So I just think that, whatever issues are going on behind the scenes that many of us may not even know what's going on, we can fix that or address that another time.
And I would be in agreement. The reason that I continue to allow the conversation, because first and foremost, I believe that the questions and concerns were addressed by Vice Chair Lanier. She's inquiring, and we in public throughout the community have been getting beat up, have been getting chastised for everything about water. So, so to that point, it's just like we have to now ask the questions. Vice Chair Lanier, she inquired, and the mayor asked originally for time to investigate. She again asked the same question. So if we're going to ask that question and we need to make this public, we need to figure it out. Because if we're not going to wait for an investigation for an outside party to tell us what's going on, then we need staff to let us know. Otherwise, we can relieve staff. It's really that simple. So as a board, we can make that decision to move forward. But if we're not going to wait for an investigation and we want to make a decision today, that's what we can do as a board to make a decision. But I believe my mayor, I'm going to support the investigation. To that point, I'm not privy to all the information. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, so I'm going to ask it in public hearing. But Mayor Felder is doing an investigation, which I'm supportive of. And once we have all the information, we can make a conscious decision across the board. But if we're going to ask the questions, we're going to allow for it to be done in the public forum. So I have no problem with us asking and inquiring, because I can be here all night talking about the most important thing, which is our water. So if we have no additional comments for this item,
Chair, just one
Vice
last
Chair,
thing.
go ahead.
Just one last thing.
Of course.
I asked the question because people have asked me the question. I did not get into the credentials, and I wasn't even going there. I just asked a simple question. People talk to me in a grocery store, at a beauty parlor, and ask me the question about what happened on June the 3rd. So I brought the question up to get answered. We said back in January that the utilities department was doing their own investigation as well. So if it's about an investigation, then it's about an investigation. But I had not heard anything about it. The public had not heard anything about it. And I was bringing it up to ask what was the status of it. That was it.
To that point, Director Lowe, Mr. Evans, would you like to answer what happened June 3rd, or do we want to wait on this investigation?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mr. Evans, go ahead.
Pursuant to my comments earlier, I think it's only appropriate that you would wait to the conclusion of the investigation before coming to any type of conclusions or assumptions with regards to what occurred on June 6th, I believe.
Thank you. Now that it's come from Mr. Evans, are we clear that we're okay to move forward? Thank you, Board. Any additional comments on this item? I believe, Board, we've exhausted the Florida Department of Health update. Mayor has addressed that. Do we want to continue with that item as 9B? Thank you. Discussion by the City Manager?
None, Mr. Chair.
Discussion by District Attorney?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Statements from the Board, starting with Vice Chair Lanier.
I just want to say briefly that when I ask questions about what's happening with the city, it is for my own edification as well as the public. When people call and ask me questions and I cannot articulate or answer their question, I need to have a public forum to be able to ask that question. And I should not get beaten up because of asking a question that the public wants to know. So I will still continue to ask those hard questions about anything that happens at the city, especially when residents call me to ask me what's up. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Dr. Spears?
Co-Chair, thank you. I appreciate your comments, and I think it's important that we be transparent with the community and ask such questions in the public. My second and final comment is, Mr. Sherman, I'm looking forward to your pro forma on a $300 million project and what the increases would be, your guesstimates on the water increases to be able to fund that type of project. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Miller Anderson.
As someone who just had an election and that was used as part of the platform, I certainly want to know what happened and why it just came to the forefront a month or two before the election when it had happened 6 months prior. So I definitely would like to know when that comes around. It's not something that I need to have pushed down anyone's throat tonight, but as soon as it comes available, I do think it's important for the public to know what happened and how it happened. So that's the end of my comment. Thank you.
Mayor?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, and just let me address this. Councilwoman Miller Anderson, you're right. We all got a report, and just on the record, because something just was said, we all got this report in January of this year. What happened? Each council member, each board member got a call to explain what happened. And then had a meeting with city manager and staff to find out what happened. I asked, could we do a water town hall and bring the health department in to discuss with the public what went on? My chief of staff then got on the phone with the health department to see if they would come out, because at this time, residents was not happy with what we were going to tell them. So I said, let's bring the entity out to explain to the residents. I was having it that next Thursday, that following Thursday. I got a call from the health department asking me, did I know exactly what happened? I explained to them what we were told. They asked, could you come down here the next Monday? I went to the health department, me and my chief of staff, who began to tell us it was other stuff that happened with the June incident. So it had nothing to do with the election. Like I said, I'm here, my grandbaby here, my mom's 84 is here. Freaking forget about an election. This is about safety. This is about my family, your family, our kids. I don't know, we keep talking about, it had nothing to do with me about an election. It had everything to do with, I was told one thing and I was told another by the health department. That's why this was important to me. Trust me, residents, it had nothing to do with any freaking election, but it did have to do with the welfare of our residents and my mama, who's 84 years old. Thank you.
And to that, Mr. Evans, we've had discussions about the water bill. I know one of the comments and discussions we talked previously about was the wastewater on the actual bill. Can we have an identify what this water bill is going to look like? See how we can possibly provide some savings and opportunities to the residents, and what we can do to actually bring back scenarios of this increase that's going to be happening. What we can do? Can you bring that to us, possibly the next utility district meeting?
Yes, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Please.
With respect to the utility bill, on your utility bill, you also have solid waste services as well as your stormwater assessment. So one of the things that we shared with the board as part of the budget discussions last year was to effectively remove those items off the utility bill and place them on the tax bill to provide for direct relief off of the utility bill. So if it is in fact the pleasure of the board, we can effectively look to bring that item before you for consideration, and then ultimately follow the statutory process concerning the appropriate notices to do that. Roughly in totality, I think the number is between $25 and $30 that it would take off the utility bill, because you have the solid waste fee and the stormwater fee, and I think solid waste is 22, and I think stormwater may be around 10, so in that ballpark. So if that's something that the board would like for us to bring forward, we can certainly do that. Also, concerning the rates, one of the things that we're looking to do is establish a lifeline rate, and a lifeline rate basically is a rate that looks at what the average consumption for water is for our residents, and then establish a base rate, and then those that are over that rate would pay more, so you can provide some relief with regards to what the normal usage is, and those that are commercial or industrial users that use a higher volume would pay a higher fee for the potable water supply. So that's something as well that's being looked at from staff, because we are conscientious that in the event that rates have to go up as a result of the new water treatment plant, that it's rates associated with the provision of water and wastewater services.
Thank you. Yeah, if we can look at some scenarios, because in addition to that, if we can discuss colleagues, we need to be making as many trips as possible to Tallahassee and to Washington just to advocate for this plan. So I spoke to Mr. Evans about possibly going up in May, as many times as we can get there in front of our legislators to provide us some assistance. I know, Dr. Spiritus, that you've had experience, so getting there would be definitely a priority of us. And of all of us, this board has been to Tallahassee and Washington, but spending this entire time just outside of session for us to go up there and advocate, if we're looking at a $300 million price point just on utility district, I want us to be the priority that we're going up there to get these dollars for. So if there's no additional business of the city utility district, this meeting is adjourned. We will be having our next meeting starting in about 10 minutes, and we're going to go straight into public comment.